The oldest of the kids here. What was it like growing up with all these younger brothers and sisters?
Hell.
Really, thinking back, it was real easy. But at the time, I'm sure we had our differences. I know we all had chores in the morning before when we were school age. Before school age, I don't remember too much.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember Dad putting the bathroom in, but as I understand it, we lived in a house for a year or two without a bathroom in the house. We had to go out and back, but I don't remember that. And then we had the bathroom.
Which house was this? The one on 6th Street?
On 6th Street, yeah. We had the room there, but they just didn't finish it.
Daddy kind of finished the house himself. I mean, they had it built, put up, but Daddy did them. And so that, you know, he did it as he could afford it.
Uh-huh. So
I don't remember us not having a bathroom.
Oh, I don't either.
Well, see, your Dad probably had it by the time Penny was born. See, and the house was built in 22. Am I right on that?
Well, that would have been a year before I was born.
Yeah. But see, I don't remember that part of it. But I remember sharing and not having a whole lot of difficulty, really. You know, we just did our thing, and there was never too many discussions on what we would do. We just did it.
how many bedrooms did you have?
Two.
One for adults and one for kids?
Well, the house was 2 bedrooms, but before Bill was born, somewhere along the line, Daddy finished the room down in the basement. And we were probably luckier than a lot of people because we also had a lavatory, stool, and a shower, which the boys used.
Mm-hmm.
So we really had 3 bedrooms.
And we had a sun porch upstairs. The sun porch.
Yeah.
We had day beds, gliders.
Well, no one slept on the sun porch except us kids when Aunt Trill and Aunt Viva came.
Yeah, we slept on the
That's when we
floor.
slept
Then
on
we
the
slept
floor.
on the floor. Betty, because she was the oldest cousin, got the day bed.
I remember when I was sick, well, I slept out there, especially I had pneumonia or something.
Well,
Then I slept on the.
Closer to Mom and Dad instead of downstairs.
Yeah.
Now, I remembered that it was dirt. The coal bin was next to the bedroom in the basement was up like, what, 12 inches?
Mhm.
Yeah.
It was a step up. It wasn't the same level as the basement. And I remembered Daddy and probably you and Maurice helping.
We dug that out.
Dug that out and Daddy made that room.
Yeah.
And it held 2 double beds.
No, 1 double bed and a single.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I thought it was 2 double
No.
beds.
No.
We had a shipper
You had a chevero
a
for
chest, or a
clothes,
drawer,
and
A chevero? What's a chevero?
a wardrobe,
a
like,
wardrobe,
That's
drawers
armoire.
and doors.
Armoire.
I know what an armoire is. I know what a wardrobe is. Okay.
A chevero.
But it was built in.
No, it
No,
was not.
no,
It was closet was built
it was
in.
cardboard, like it was.
No, it was wooden because those people had it on when this lady that bought Mom and Dad's house, or the couple, when the lady died, they put the house on the market, and Dean and Wahneta and I went over it. Now, we thought that house was a good-sized house. Well, it shrunk in all these years. It
They do
shrunk
that.
a lot. And they had this pretty antique mirror that Daddy had over the vanity down the basement.
Not the lavatory.
The lavatory.
Not
It
a
wasn't-
vanity. It wasn't a vanatory.
Well, a sink, whatever.
Right.
And they had taken that down, they sold it, and they took the chiffrobe out of the bedroom. It was outside, and Mother and Daddy left all that with the house. But when they had the auction, all that was outside.
Now, Mrs. Paler was deceased at that point.
But the
Mr. and Mrs. Paler bought the house from Mother and Daddy when they moved out here to Ridge Road in '55. Yeah, it was '55 because I lived in Norfolk and
I was in service.
April and Mark and I came home. No, it wasn't '55? What?
Not from what I've heard.
When did you hear?
Well, Bill talked about helping them move in.
Well,
Bill would have been.
I graduated from high school in '52. I went to junior college,
When I lived in
53.
Atlanta,
and I think it was closer to 53.
uh-uh.
54?
Oh, 51 to 53, we were in Sanford. 53 to, right before 55, we were in Atlanta at Georgia Tech. Then we were in Norfolk, and it was the summer of 55. When I lived in Atlanta, I sent you brownies at the University of Illinois.
Right. Well, I graduated in '57. But I don't know if it's in the record. I thought now is a good time. I remember when they sold the house there, and Don Geary met Mom somewhere and gave her the check for the house. And Mom just folded the check or something and put it in her purse. She didn't even look at it. And later on in the day, she pulled that check out, I guess, to go make the deposit, and it was for the whole price of the house. And she had never seen a check anywhere close to that, and she became very nervous, and she had never seen that much money before. And I didn't know if y'all had.
No, I wasn't aware of that.
I wasn't either.
No, we all came home when Mom and Dad moved in that house.
I didn't.
You didn't?
No, because I was in service.
You did, okay. And Penny and I said, Mom, the kitchen is for you to do as you please. And then Marge goes in there and she's gonna help Mother do the kitchen. But we all stood in the living room and said, the sofa should go here. No, the sofa should go there. And we all told Mother how to arrange her house. And when I walk around the circle now and I look at that house, I think, this used to provoke me that Mother and Dad sat there in the living room with the blinds open. And I thought they shouldn't keep the blinds open at night, and,
So
but they did.
why did they move from 6th Avenue or 6th over here?
To get the washer and dryer on ground level. The washer and dryer were in the basement.
A little more convenient house,
Okay.
Yeah.
for there.
Okay, going back to the other house, Margaret Bazant and I were reminiscing about this, the beauty shop just last week. She was telling, now she's a lady in her 80s, how her grandparents cooked in the basement in the summertime. And I remember Mother had a 2-burner gas tabletop stove, not fancy, just 2 little burners in the basement, and she had an old cabinet full of junky odds and end dishes. And then Dad had made, I remember, a bench, a table and bench like you would have as a picnic table in the basement. Do you remember that, Dean?
No, I don't remember that.
I
I don't remember that
remember,
either.
I remember the table over there on that side, and we ate down there in the summertime, weather like this,
I
right?
remember every Monday, Mother putting beans on down there on that stove.
Well, that was the little coal stove
Yeah.
that they had to heat water
Yeah.
for a long time when we didn't
Yeah, Mother
have
had a Ringer washing machine when I was,
yeah.
you had the tubs and all
Yeah.
that good
You
stuff.
had hot water.
We had white beans every Monday. See,
Or
Yeah.
stew.
yeah.
You had pipes running through this little laundry stove, they call it.
Yeah.
And they also ran through the furnace, so in the wintertime, you'd use the furnace to heat the water, as well as this little laundry stove.
Did your mother do all the cooking when you were growing up, or did your dad do some cooking too?
Oh,
I don't remember Dad ever cooking anything.
no, I don't.
Well, until he retired.
Yeah.
He may have cooked on
And
holidays when the summertime, we would go out to the old reservoir, and he may help us get a little stick and maybe fix a hot dog, or
Well,
we
we
just
did,
had bacon and
we
eggs
did
on the
breakfast
skillet,
out
yeah.
at old
He-
old reservoir. It was-
Yeah. He
That
always
was
wanted to go swimming before the crowd got there because it got dirty water.
What is Old Reservoir?
Well, it's up here on the old Reservoir Road. It's a little
Community
bitty
Beach Road. It's
It's
really a little lake now.
little bitty lake.
Yeah.
But it was where we went to go swimming. We didn't have a pool till I was in about 7th grade.
And that was before Raccoon Lake was built.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had old reservoir and new reservoir. New reservoir was what is now Lake Centralia, I guess.
Yeah.
And that was really the water system of Centralia.
But we would, mother was fix things, and Daddy would take us swimming, and then they'd cook an open breakfast.
That was a treat.
We did that on most holidays, a lot of holidays.
But not when I was a kid, because I don't remember doing any of that.
Don't you?
You were probably in.
Well, we had the pool.
Yeah,
We had the pool then.
Well, and maybe once a year we would go to Salem. Salem had a pool before we
And we'd
did.
go to Mount Vernon about once a year.
I don't remember Mount
I don't
Vernon.
remember going to Mount
I
Vernon.
don't remember going to Salem.
I remember going both places.
I remember going to Salem, but I don't remember going to Mount Vernon.
Yeah,
So who taught you how to swim? Did your parents do that, or?
Oh,
Daddy did that.
Ellie taught me to swim in some creek with that muddy, that I wouldn't even go in now.
And who's Ellie?
Ellie was my next door
Sister.
My next door sister. Yeah, I think that's a good. Margaret Ellen Reinbold grew up next door to us, and we have a lot in common. We were born on the same day. One of us was born right before the other. Our mother's names were Hazel. Our fathers worked for the railroad,
Different railroads.
different railroads, but Ellie,
And their mothers lied to get them into school because
Yeah.
their birthday was the wrong time of the year.
I didn't remember that.
That's all right.
yeah, you had to be, I guess, 6 by September 15th to start school. And the school in those days was A and B. Like in January, you were the B class. Well, so our birthday being September 19th, our mothers said, well, we were born the 15th. And so we went to school early. We weren't even 6. Mary Alice Hill, one of our good friends, she was born September 29th. Of course, Rita, I need to back up. Rita Schilling was a teacher at this school.
And so
It was our cousin,
It was mother's cousin.
mother's cousin.
Yeah.
And her sister was too.
No, not
No,
in our
not
school.
not in
Not
our.
Irving.
Anyway,
Francis
probably the
was.
school knew
was a
our
teacher,
mothers
but
were
not
lying. Probably the school knew that they fudged a little bit. But Mary Alice had to, since hers was 15 days later. No, 14 days. I'll get it right. Mary Alice had to go back home and couldn't start school till January. But Ellie and I started in September. And
I didn't know that.
yeah, but there was, and I remember, another thing I remember is, of course, we're experiencing this now, but Mother would have 20 to 25 people at our house, Aunt Beava's family, Aunt Triel's, and probably everybody in the world was invited to
And
our.
Wahneta and I had to do the dishes for all of them.
Y'all go. Wahneta and Penny or Arlene will do the dishes, and
They like to do dishes.
yeah.
Did you?
No, because my sister made me wash them all the time because she had just fixed her fingernails. So I had to do them. And then if we got to fussing, Daddy would come in, and Daddy was the most gentle father, but when he said something, you knew he meant it into March. And he would come in and he'd say, all right, I will do the dishes. And we knew better. I don't know what would have happened if we'd let him, but we never let him.
I remember you girls. Dad insisted that we eat dinner at 5 o'clock. And us boys had better be there, sitting at the table at 5 o'clock. But you girls could come in at quarter after, kiss Dad on the top of the head, and he'd melt like a wet noodle. And he'd never say a word to you
I
girls.
don't remember that.
I don't either.
Of course, Mom gave me
That
the
might
bare
have been
bottom.
after we left home, Wahneta.
I had the only bare bottom spanking I got was from Mom when I was playing basketball and I was late. So.
Well, I got a spanking from Dad, one spanking from Dad, because I didn't go home when he told me to go home.
I got one from Dad, and I should have gotten one from Dad. I was in the first grade, and without telling no one, I went home with a little girl that lived out here on East Broadway. I walked home with her. Her mother, I don't know what her mother thought, but anyway, I walked home by myself. And as I walked up the back sidewalk, my father was out that back door, and he gave me a swat. And that's the only spanking. I don't remember Mother ever spanking me.
I don't remember either. Paul asked if the boys wrestled or fought, and I don't remember. I don't. I don't remember.
Bill used to pick on me a lot.
Well, wait a minute. Now, you used to hold me down and tickle me. Before you went in the Navy, and that's when you used to boss me around and everything, but then you went in the Navy, and while you were gone, I grew up, and I remember when the airplane came into St. Louis, and you had your duffel bag, and you took it and you handed it to me and said, "Here, carry that." And I, of course, was taller than you and told you, "You carry your own." But on the dishes, when Chuck and I were there and you two had gone, it seemed like there was always one of us signed. And Chuck did the washing and I did the drying. And we raced to see who was done.
Well, that was still the case at our house growing up. If the dryer got done quicker than the washer, they quit.
Yeah, but you would always leave some silverware or something in the bottom, and I would put the towel up thinking the dishes were done, and I'd run into the other room, and you'd say, "Hey, you forgot this." And then he'd finish and leave. He was mean, but I survived it.
What kind of games did y'all enjoy playing as kids? Whether as a family or playing after school?
There was an empty lot down between the Carters and the Henrys, wasn't it?
Well, the Uncle
Nathan and it was Henry's when you.
And almost every Sunday afternoon there was a ball game.
For a while there was tennis courts.
We had tennis courts in there too.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, there and touch football and in the summer you played out under the street lights. You played kick the can and
Chalk the corner, whatever that was called.
Mother never played that games with us like Daddy did.
Mm-hmm.
It was always Daddy that was taking us swimming. Daddy would jump rope with Wahneta and I.
I remember dominoes and checkers in the house. We always had
We
games.
played a lot of pinochle too.
later, and I remember as we were gotten older, it was pinochle.
We played a lot of.
Mother and Daddy would have Oliver and Geraldine Winkler to come like on New Year's Eve, and then we'd all play pinochle, and
Played dominoes with Grandpa Heyduck, our grandpa,
Checkers.
and checkers.
And we played Gusher too.
yeah,
But
that was
wasn't
after
there
the
somebody
Monopoly.
that you knew or
Yeah.
Mom and Dad knew that?
No, Dean, the kid that went to
school, the Deatons.
Yeah.
That picture we have in the living room was painted by his mother,
Okay.
Mrs. Deaton.
Because we got one of the original,
Yeah.
the Gusher games.
Yeah. I wish we still had that. I don't know.
He died
Yeah,
a few
collector's
years ago.
item be worth
There was an article about him. If you go out of Denver on 70, there's this roundhouse up on the left-hand side that he built and designed. But he went to high school here. They came with the oil boom, I think.
We don't want any of your stories because they'd probably be true.
That our basement bedroom was really an ideal situation. It had a south window and a west window, and then
no west window.
East.
East
East window, you're right. And then it had the door on the north that
Right.
you got good steady breezes through there. And of course, in the wintertime, the furnace was down there to heat it.
Mhm.
And then with the shower and the commode and the sink down there, shoot, we had our own apartment in the basement.
We had a ping pong table down there.
Yeah,
We played.
well, the ping pong table was a round oak table, well, a table like this.
Big right.
And you play ping pong on a round table. And there were always kids down there playing ping pong. And Dad took us to basketball games and football games. And I remember one time we were on the old 37 and the road went down and you went under the railroad tracks and then the road came up and it snowed and ice and so forth. And Dad went down and then we went up and we slid back down and whatever. But we finally made it to Mount Vernon for the game. But it was rough.
Back then, football, Centralia played Mount Vernon every Thanksgiving. And if you were playing in Mount Vernon and Centralia won, you got out of town quick. It was not safe to be in town.
But there was never anything violent on it.
No.
You honked the
compared to
horn
today.
and yelled and things like that.
Yeah. And then dinner was always after the game. Thanksgiving dinner was always after the game.
So it was a day game?
Yeah, Mom used to drive us to the games, or didn't she?
Yes, a lot of times. If Daddy was at work, Mother drove. Mother wasn't afraid to drive to St. Louis or any place.
But now we only had one car, so
Yeah.
how did Dad get, if he got called in?
Well, for a while we had buses. Daddy rode the bus
Yeah, he would walk down.
to Pine Street and get on the bus.
Pine and 6th Street
Yeah.
was the bus.
Down to Hills Corner.
Is that how
And
he
then
used to get
Fuzzy.
to the shops?
Yeah.
Okay.
Fuzzy,
Well, I
our
knew
dog,
he
would
walked
meet
down
him.
that street, but I didn't know.
Well,
Yeah.
I remember he had to walk all the way over to Elm Street to catch the bus. He walked that far to catch the bus.
Well, I think sometimes the bus connections weren't just right. And now, when we first moved into our house, I could ride to what was Rice's Drugstore on Poplar and Calumet, or I could ride out Lincoln Street, 2nd Street, to Pine Street, and sometimes that bus was quicker to get home than going the other way. Although I walked a little farther, but I rode a little ways too.
What do you remember about your grandparents?
Grandpa Heyduck, I remember going up there, but in recent years, Grandpa Heyduck was blind, and I think as I have glaucoma now, and I've been told this is inherited, that I think this is what made Grandpa Heyduck go blind.
But he was a neat guy.
Yeah, he
Uh-huh.
hauled coal or
He hauled coal and things like that.
he hauled
He was a teamster.
he hauled brick for the Methodist church.
A lot of buildings, when Daddy and Uncle Duke was little, and see, their mother died when they were 9. And the girls would go to Grandma Bundy's, but Grandpa would keep the twins with him. And they would ride, and I don't know how much help they were at that age. But our dad would say, I helped Grandpa deliver these bricks for this building and all that. But on Sunday we'd go up to Grandpa's when Grandma
And Grandma Hattie.
yeah, Grandpa remarried about the time Mother and Daddy married, and married Hattie. And we'd go up there, and now you couldn't do it, but we would eat at noon, and then they would put all these newspapers on the table, and then the tablecloth on top of that, and the food would just sit there all afternoon.
Yeah.
That was before bacteria grew fast and stuff.
Yes.
Okay.
I remember that.
Yeah, I remember going to Hattie. Did we? I don't. We must have called her Grandma.
I did.
Yeah. I just can't remember her being anything but a loving grandmother.
No, she would go to Dollar Day and you could buy 2 dresses for $1. She'd buy one for herself and one for me.
Oh, she did?
Well,
Oh, I didn't know about that.
How old was she when I died? Because all I remember is Grandpa.
I was
She
about-
died
I
in
was about-
37 or 38.
I was about 13,
I was in high school.
I think I was in the 5th or 6th grade.
so I would have been older.
Because then I don't, Aunt Carrie was some relation of Mother's.
Yeah.
But Aunt Carrie went and stayed with Grandpa and cooked and kept his house. But because she was a widow, I stayed up there a lot of the times too. I don't know what I was doing as a child. I kept people from talking, I guess. But I stayed up there a lot with this Aunt Carrie and Grandpa overnight.
Well, I used to stay at Aunt Sadie's. Aunt Sadie was afraid to be alone. Aunt Sadie Schilling.
Okay.
And when Uncle Frank was called out, I went over and stayed at Aunt Sadie, which was just around on Cedar, just about a block from our house. And I would stay with Aunt Sadie. I don't know if I was going to chase the boogeyman away or what, but anyway, I stayed with Aunt Sadie.
I can remember Grandpa, who told the story, was told that he got mad at Dad and Uncle Duke because they wouldn't buy him a new truck, because he said he didn't have enough money to buy him a new truck.
And they refused to buy him a new truck.
And he was about 80 then.
Yeah.
He was delivering one
Yeah.
by shovel. That's shovel off of the truck and whatnot.
He had a helper.
Of course, he was strong, because I remember whenever I went to his house, he'd come up to my knee and he'd squeeze it. He'd say, "Do you know how a crow lights?" And he'd squeeze me, and his hand at 80-some years old, even up almost 90, was still long enough for this young person to
remember.
Yeah. But we'd go up to the house there at that one.
Yeah, it's where
before
the
I died.
housing where Fayette lives now. It's where Grandpa's home place was. And he had a big yard, front yard, and a really big backyard. Those lots in that area had really long,
He had a
narrow
big
lots.
farm back there. too.
That's where the housing is now, you know.
Where-
The Marion County housing is
Okay.
Was Aunt Carrie's.
Also, he had, I remember Mother feeding us asparagus. Would grow down this fence row. You had to get them just right, you know. Those sticks would grow up there, and Grandpa would call and say, "I've got some asparagus there ready." And Dad would go up and get this mess of straw.
You know, what I remember is, another thing I remember is we never ate out.
Oh,
If
no.
we ate out, it was it was Mother and Dad's anniversary.
But we didn't go, they went.
No, there was a time when we all went. I remember, I want to say at the Lincoln Luncheonette.
On the folks' 25th wedding anniversary.
Really?
We all sat around the table. We all ate out. Another thing that I remembered that Mother did, I've heard so many people say from our age that we were poor and we didn't know it.
Oh, yes.
But on our birthdays, you always got your favorite meal. That was, and I don't remember any presents that I got. I don't remember. I know I didn't get lots of toys or
I got
anything
toys
like.
that were hand-me-downs.
But you got your favorite meal, and
Favorite cake.
yeah, and your favorite cake. I always like devil's food with a cooked icing. That's what I like. Or applesauce cake.
I remember Grandpa Funsman too. Now, we're talking about Grandpa Charlie Heyduck. Grandpa always fussed when I knew him because there was nobody to speak German to anymore. He used to speak German to all of his old buddies,
Dr. Kissel.
and then all of those deceased long before he did.
Mm-hmm.
And he used to chop up cigars and smoke them in his pipe. It stunk up everything. I can remember that.
I remember him smoking a pipe, but I didn't remember it really stinking.
Oh, I do.
And he drank wine. He'd sit there in his rocking chair and drink his or something.
Wine.
And he had something on the wall
And
in
had
German.
hard candy. He'd suck on hard candy a lot.
Yeah, what was it on the wall that had, what, a calendar or some sayings in German? Do you remember?
I don't know,
Okay.
but I remember Daddy didn't want him. He would tell us, like, pass the potatoes or pass the bread in German, and Daddy didn't want him to do that. He didn't want us to.
I don't remember him speaking very much.
It was mostly words, like, you know.
As children, Grandpa's sister, Kate Sebastian in Odin, she had a lovely big home in Odin, and I remember at least one time going up there for I guess a family picnic on her yard, in her lawn.
They had the broom factory.
Yep, they made brooms, which I said was right north of their house, and Dean said it was across the street.
I thought it was across the street
So-
east.
They moved the road.
That could be.
But what I remember, I don't really remember this, but they teased me that I wore a sailor suit when I was about 4 or 5 years old, but I couldn't say sailor suit. I'm not sure. Sailor suit. They used to tease me about that all the time, that I couldn't pronounce sailor suit. I can't pronounce a lot of words to this day.
I had trouble. I remember when it was just Chuck and I, and we were, not just in us, but we would be the ones with Mother, because you kids would be in school, and we'd see Grandpa downtown, and he would give us a 50-cent piece. And that was a lot of money in those days. And he also took, not Bruce, what's your name? He took him up and bought you that Indian suit.
Yep.
And we have a good picture of that.
So you tried running into him a lot when you were downtown?
Yeah, we thought it was fun to run into Grandpa downtown. 'Cause
I used to go to the, grocery store with Mother, which was Alcorn's. And,
that's not where he gave you candy.
no, they gave me a piece of bologna.
Oh, did they?
Yes,
Alcorn's
and we
wouldn't
thought
give
that was
anything, I don't
better than
think.
candy.
Oh.
Mother always wore a hat and gloves, too, when she went to the grocery store.
Heck, I remember when St. Louis shopping, you wore a hat and gloves.
We had a lady in church this morning with a hat on, from Marion, that used to live here. That's a different story.
Okay. So you went to your Aunt Kate's house for a picnic. Which of your other Heyduck aunts and uncles did you go visit?
We went to Carlinville lots of times.
Oh yeah, to Carlinville, right.
And who's in Carlinville?
Dad's sister Mabel, and Uncle Claude was a
Professional photographer.
professional.
Roth.
Claude Roth was a professional photographer, and they lived upstairs over a drugstore, and that was,
A&P store.
I thought it was a drugstore.
Well,
Maybe the
yeah.
drugstore was down across, but anyway, that was really neat to be right downtown, and you went downstairs and you were right downtown on the square. But that's part of why we have so many pictures of our family as children and so forth, because of Uncle Claude gave them to us. Another thing that I think about is our teeth. That we were taken to Dr. John Heyduck as a dentist for checkups and so forth. And I don't know how Mother and Daddy paid for it, maybe a penny a week or a penny a month or something. But we got checkups from a dentist.
Did you know how you were related to him then?
Yeah, he was Daddy's cousin.
Did you know how he was a cousin?
Yeah, his mother lived right there behind the church.
Okay.
And, I could have told you her name 2 minutes ago. Was it Susan
I think it was.
and Susan? And
No, that wasn't his mother, was it? Susan was my age.
no, that was her granddaughter.
That's another.
Okay.
But was her name Susan, Dean?
It seems like it was Sarah or Susan.
Are you leaving?
Yeah, we'll see you guys.
Oh. Okay, be careful.
But we knew he was Daddy's cousin.
Yeah, anybody Heyduck's got to be related.
Right.
But they lived right there by the church, and they all went to the Christian church. So whenever I had a loose tooth and we were there at a potluck or John would say, "Let me see it." And I'd show it to him, and next thing I know, he was handing me my tooth. Right at the church.
I don't remember that.
Well, that wasn't your tooth.
But I don't remember him as a dentist, or maybe that
No,
was,
you
he
probably-
was,
You
had
probably
retired or
before you
something.
got there.
Again, he died when I was in high school, I think.
Okay.
I remember when Bill was born, of course, we were all born at home, and we were sent over to Mrs. Reinbold's house next door, and we were over there till they told us that Bill had arrived, and then we could go back home. But we went over to Mrs. Reinbold's house next door, and
Speaking of birth, were any of you named after anyone?
well, I was named after Mother. My
Okay.
middle name is well, my first name is Wahneta. Mother's middle name.
I
Yeah.
was named after Charles Heyduck and Otto Mathis.
Uh-huh.
So I've got the two grandfathers' names.
And I was named after my mother's good friend who just passed away before I was born.
But I don't know. Any of you know why they named me William
I
Robert?
don't know, we probably, well, all of us probably named John.
I thought it was kind of a catch thing that William Robert Ferguson came to our house a lot in those days.
Okay.
They lived up on South Lincoln Street.
I remember you kids talking about neighbors. I can remember you three, especially Dean and Wahneta and Penny, always bringing somebody home with you for a meal.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
yeah. I was
Mother
really,
never questioned it.
I was really bad during the war, or when I guess when our country was starting to mobilize. And after church, you would go downtown, and if there was a soldier standing at the corner of Locust and Broadway, you picked him up and you brought him home and you gave him dinner.
I remember that.
I can just remember the Moonies.
Yeah, they stopped.
occasionally stopped for dinner in the evening.
They,
And there was a Bob Smith that was a student manager with me on the football and basketball team, and he lived way over on South Cherry, and if we had a night practice, sometimes he'd eat dinner at our house, and then he and I'd go back to the high school, because we only had like an hour and a half between sessions or whatever.
but the Mooney boys would come by and pick up Dean to walk to school with them, just
But
so,
They
just-
were really after Wahneta.
but they were after Mother's cooking.
They were a family of
5 boys.
5 boys, and their father worked on the railroad, and their mother died. They were home alone, all these boys, and I say as you drove by it. I don't know that I drove by, but if you went by their house, they would be sitting out on the porch. They were just hanging out. But
They were all superior athletes.
yeah, they were all great athletes. And,
But when you stop to think about it, we ate real well. you know.
Oh, extra well.
And like today is Sunday, we would have been home from church at noon or whatever and would have had a nice meal by 1 o'clock and have the dishes cleaned up by 1:30 if the girls were on the ball.
And while dinner was going on, a lot of times we listened to the music on the radio.
At least in later years in my time, Dad would fall asleep in the living room in a chair. I remember too that it was routine for Dad, whenever he came home, he'd come in the back door, no matter what was going on in the front door. I think he probably took off his shoes,
Probably.
left them, and then there was the cookie jar, and he would always have a couple of cookies when he got home from work.
And he'd give the fuzzy one.
Well,
Yeah,
Fuzzy
yeah.
and Betsy would stay with Fuzzy down on the corner. They knew what time Daddy was coming home. And Betsy
speaking of taking a nap on Sunday.
Betsy and Fuzzy was always there for a cookie when Grandpa was.
And who are they?
Betsy, the little girl, lived behind us,
Betsy Albright.
Betsy Albright.
and
And
her
Fuzzy.
brother.
And Fuzzy was a little dog that was a Heinz, looked somewhat like a beagle.
with no hair. Not
We always said Fuzzy Wuzzy wasn't fuzzy, was he?
Right,
He
He
wasn't.
always slept on the end of my bed.
He did?
You couldn't open the cookie jar that Penny
Right.
still has without that dog hearing it, no matter where the dog was in the house.
I assume they were always homemade cookies.
Yeah, Mother, I
don't think
remember.
there was
Yeah.
such a thing as
I
pop.
remember
Right, well.
the kitchen cabinet being just covered with cookies. And when you think about it, you know, how we know now how cookies are inhaled, that Mother made a lot of cookies.
Well, she always baked every Saturday morning, didn't she?
She baked every day.
Seemed like every day there was something.
We always had dessert. We always had cake, our muffins, our pies.
Tapioca
Or-
or pudding or.
What were her specialties?
Mother wasn't a fancy cook, but we would have roast or fried chicken or,
Meat, potatoes, and gravy.
yeah, we always had,
Always had potatoes of some kind,
yeah,
fried, mashed, whatever.
yeah.
I don't know if for you all, and maybe I was spoiled, but I remember coming home from the University of Illinois, she would always want to fix something special for me. And one time, at that time, as far as I know, we did not have any pizza places here.
No.
But you could go to the grocery store and buy a pizza in a box.
Yeah.
And Mom I'd told stories about having pizza at school, so she decided to make a pizza for me. Well, she had no idea that then it was kind of thin crust. Well, it was not. Of course, nowadays you can get a thick crust, but it was very thick, and I think I was appreciative of it, even though it wasn't like the...
You not what you wanted.
Yeah, right, but she tried. And I don't know if she ever tried to, or did anything like that.
I don't
for you
remember
all.
ever having pizza there.
Well, not pizza, but other things that you had picked up somewhere else.
Another thing that I remember, like I said, Mother always had a little bit extra, and this would have had to have been in the Depression, and the word is that your house was marked, and a man would come to your back door and begging for a meal, and Mother would always fix a plate, and the arbor in the back, they weren't invited in, but they sat outside and they ate their plate of food, and then they went on. But I remember Mother.
Oh, yes.
Mother never turned anyone away. It might have been a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, but she gave them something. And I didn't know, the Mother always said our house is marked. And a couple years ago I got a catalog, and it had this cap. Very simple cap, and it said that's how they were marked, on the garage or the fence post or something. And I never knew how our house was marked until I read that. Mother always just said our house was marked. And
As you went down the first set of stairs, if you turned left, you went out the back door. If you turned right, you went down to the basement. But there, Mother had a big canned goods inventory
yeah.
that she could always fix anything, come up with anything out of that canned goods.
And then next to that was an old icebox.
Yeah.
And in the summertime when everybody came, you don't remember the old icebox?
Yes, I do.
I don't.
No, we had refrigeration when
right.
he was.
Yeah, but I think that
And we had a
icebox
window
sat
box.
there for a long, long time.
We had a window box in that north window in the kitchen, and
Yeah.
how that managed to keep food. But our standard today, it was just.
Do you remember the kitchen table?
Where did the table that we have in the living room, where did that one come from? It's not like that, but for the lack of how to describe it, it's 4 legs and a cross and an oval. Where did that come from?
Was that from
Some of the Heyducks, I think.
Was that from Grandpa's or from the folks when they moved from 6th Street?
I don't know. We've had it a long time.
Changing the subject slightly, was anything of your German heritage carried over when you were kids? Any stories about being German, or was that
Grandpa
ever
didn't-
mentioned?
Our dad didn't want to even talk about that.
Okay.
That was not the time you wanted to be a German.
Right.
Well, especially in World War I remember I went to visit Bob and we went down into Mexico and I started to say something about I was German and he said, shut up, you're not German, you're American.
We just didn't, back in the 30s and 40s,
You didn't talk about
you
me.
didn't talk about your family being from anywhere that I can remember. We didn't have any kids that spoke Spanish, for example, or whatever, or German. We had a German school over here on South Hickory Street. Am I right?
Yes,
Hickory?
and they
Yeah.
spoke German over there.
What do you mean in
The old
German
German
school?
church.
The
Yeah.
Lutheran, Trinity Lutheran had German classes.
Uh-huh, and so that
Oh, okay.
the one on Beach and 3rd,
Yeah,
that's, what's that? That's,
but really they got away from all of that in the 30s and 40s, and like you say, World War II.
Well,
Really
Henry Heyduck's family told the story in after they moved to Texas when World War I started. Henry was running a store, and some people came in and said, "Anybody here speak German?" And they said no, and up to that point they had, and after that point they never did again.
you know, it just got to the point, Daddy didn't
Yeah,
didn't want Grandpa to even say German words in front of us. I remember that very plainly.
I don't know about now friends that have, way I feel, more German ancestors than I have, but I never thought that much about it.
No. The only thing I can remember was, like I said, when Grandpa Heyduck fussed because he didn't have anybody to talk German to.
Well,
That was
And I don't
much
remember
later
that.
years.
I don't remember talking, but Dr. Kissel would, when Grandpa would get some mail or something, it'd be in German. I don't know who it was from, but Dr. Kissel always came and read it to him, because Grandpa could not read German.
I don't remember that.
One thing too, at holidays, Uncle Duke was always at our house unless he was on the road.
Yeah.
And I remember one Christmas, I got a train, and I didn't get to play with it all day because my dad and Uncle Duke played with it all day.
Wasn't Dudley and
I don't know, but I didn't
Dudley
get to play with it.
and Gerald here too?
Probably.
I think they all were there, and you couldn't even get close.
Yeah,
It was your train.
yeah.
Well,
But later on, Dad mounted it on plywood and put it down the basement.
I remember that,
Yeah, we
okay.
had that on the old round table down there.
Yeah,
Yeah, and then we'd drop it down on the round table.
right. Okay.
Which of your Grandpa Heyduck's brothers and sisters did you know, or families did you know when you were growing up?
I don't think I knew any of them.
The
Well-
Gastons and the Fikes and the Fowlers?
Sure, we knew. And Laura Gaston.
Yeah, they lived up there behind Grandpa, didn't they?
Yeah.
Oh, around the corner on
Around
the
the
court,
corner.
but their yards ran into each other in the back.
Now, Jacob Heyduck's will said that his house was sold to his daughter,
Ruby Kimball.
Laura Gaston.
Oh,
Jacob Heyduck.
Oh, Jake.
Jacob
Now,
and
where was that?
Laura and
Did you
Percy.
have
It was
that?
on McCord Street.
Yeah.
Well, that had been the old house that Aunt Mabel and Uncle Claude lived in, and Mother and Daddy lived in it for a while.
That could have been on the north side of McCord.
Yeah, but Mother and Daddy lived there for a little while when they were first married, and then Aunt Mabel and Uncle Claude lived there till they moved to Carlinville.
Is that house still there?
I think so,
No, I didn't know that.
yeah.
Now, where did the Roths live?
That would have been Jacob, you said?
Jacob's will, 1914.
I remember Aunt Ruby living around the corner on McCord in a little house. It was a little flat house, little,
Yeah,
That
well,
was
Uncle
next
Duke,
door to Caston's.
yeah, yeah.
that Uncle Duke lived with her for a long time there, when Junior was little.
I,
Aunt Ruby never really, no, I'm not, erase that.
Aunt Ruby was
You want to stop?
the witch of the neighborhood, of the family.
Yes.
She never really supported herself, I always figured.
No.
She worked sometimes, but I don't think she earned a living. But that's okay.
was she a parasite?
Not exactly.
Gold
No, but
digger?
I think she's the one that
She was-
separated the Ross and our Heyduck clan.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Never Gerald.
I'd like to know more about Jacob, my great-grandfather. he was the one that came from Germany, right?
Right, 1856.
And he went back and married his,
Well, according to the Zion German church up in Central City, Grandpa always said he went back and married his wife's sister and brought her back. But the marriage license are recorded up at the Zion church.
boy, they are.
The way I heard the story was that his first wife died in 1863, and he knew exactly who he wanted to marry back in Germany. It was like his first or second cousin, Philippina Heyduck. And he went back to Germany in the middle of the Civil War, and they said, oh, she's already gone to America. She's in New York City. So he sails back to New York City, tracks her down, brings her back here, and marries her.
That's what I recall, yeah.
You know, that's the story I recall.
I thought Grandpa or Dad told us that.
Right.
When
That's what I heard from
were
him.
visiting. Okay.
So he did go back for her, but he did marry her here.
Here. Because, and they were married, and it's registered up at that little church up at Green Street.
Yeah.
Elm, it's in their books. Yeah. Felsham, I think, found it, or
Right.
Vernon Abbey Winters found it, one.
So what about your grandfather's brother William? Did you know his family at all? I think he married Amy Branch.
Oh, Branch?
I think so.
Would that be the Henry that lived out on the lake? No, he married a Branch.
Maybe it was William's son Henry that married a Branch. I don't remember which generation that was. But I know that your grandfather Heyduck and his brother William were the only two children by Jacob's first wife.
Oh, I thought it was Aunt Kate and Grandpa.
No.
No, it wasn't Aunt Kate.
No.
Okay.
What about Aunt Josie? Did you know her family at all? The Hildebeidel's?
I remember going to the-
We went out to the Hildebeidel's house out here. I remember going out there.
for a picnic. I remember.
Yeah.
I remember waiting on some of the Hildebreidels in Montgomery Ward that would come in, and they knew Dad and them were cousins or whatever, but I don't, you know, as far as really visiting and all, but I do remember going to a picnic out at the big brick house off of 161.
61, yeah. And that was,
And there was a fellow there from, I guess it's, automobiles have always stood out. Maybe that's why Ronald got into it. But there was a fella came from Kansas City with a new Auburn or something, and I remember everybody on and in this car, you know. This was the greatest thing that ever happened, and it took him like a day and a half or 2 days to drive from Kansas City to. I remember that part of it.
I remember Dad taking us down to Johnnytown to look at the 37 flood.
Yes.
And it took us almost all day to go down there and come back.
Yeah.
Well, I remember riding in our car to Aunt Mabel and Uncle Claude's in our car
29 Chevy.
that had running boards, and the suitcases were put on the running boards, and we got in this old car and we drove up and to Carlinville, and they were little, just one-lane roads practically. They were not.
One way would be paved, and if you met a car, you had to get off on the gravel or whatever, whichever turn it was, whose turn it was.
There was still some sections of
Yeah,
that
I
when I
remember.
was growing up, and would go. It wasn't usable, or it wasn't. It was beside the road, either one side or another.
you'd say, here it comes.
Yeah.
And there it goes.
That was part of the
Visible.
game,
It's
was to
still-
watch for it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
They never took it out.
And I remember once we were on that overpass in Greenville, and Daddy met a car and our brakes didn't work. But we didn't wreck or anything. I don't remember how.
We
I
probably
think,
weren't going that fast.
well, maybe not.
One time, didn't somebody put their foot in the Cape going up there or something?
They have.
Must have been somebody else.
Not me.
I bet it wasn't you.
Probably was.
Uncle Ellis, and what was Uncle Ellis's? Now Bernice, they had the daughter Bernice, and as far as we know,
Oh, I still get Christmas cards. I should have brought that picture over. Last Christmas, she sent me a picture of her.
they lived there on Nolman, and I think it was at their house, and I've never forgotten this, that they kept the iced tea in a big crock. And I went to help myself to some iced tea, and I got instead.
Oh.
Probably wine.
No, I got cider.
I remember when they lived up in Kid Mundy, we went up there and they would have the whole window seat full of homemade candy. Gumdrops, chocolates, any kind of candy that you could.
I don't
The
remember
whole
that.
window seat was full of it. Uncle, Aunt Beulah. Wasn't that her name?
Beulah Bundy.
Yeah.
No,
No, she wasn't the Bundy. And Uncle Ellis. And
was a Heyduck.
Uncle Ellis married a Bundy.
She married the Bundy?
Yep.
He did?
Yep.
Was her name Beulah?
Uh-huh.
Okay. And then they had Bernice.
Right. Who lives in Wyoming.
Yeah. I still hear
Well,
from
Uncle
her.
Ellis was a half-brother, wasn't he?
The Belcher
Yeah.
lady come down and stay with anybody else but me when I was born with mother?
Oh, she lived with us several
Well,
years.
that's
and
why-
a Belcher.
I was going to tell you, when we were all little, Mother had help. Anna Belcher was one from Patoka. There was no this is the way I always understood it, there was no high school there, so they would come and live with a family in Centralia to go to high school, and they would earn their keep by helping Mother take care of all these little kids.
Mm-hmm.
And what's her name? Maroon.
Selma. Selma didn't go
Selma
to school.
Bierman.
She didn't go to school. She
But
just
she
worked.
would work and help Mother with us.
Yeah.
Well, your mother's that way too.
Paul and Mother's cousins did that too. They live in. And Mother went to high school, but she only finished the first 6 weeks, and she couldn't get the Latin to suit the teacher, so Mother just quit.
Did y'all know any of the brothers or sisters of your Grandpa Mathis?
Yeah, we used to go down to, I think his name was John. And they, Mathis,
Mm-hmm.
they lived down,
What we call Southtown?
yeah, where the housing is right there.
Well, mother was born, didn't Otto Mathis live down there on South Elm or South
They lived on Maple.
Maple, South Maple?
When Maurice was little anyway. When Mother and Daddy were married, they lived on Maple. But I remember going to John. And
Yeah, they lived
was
on
it
that.
Minnie?
Yes.
Marion and 10th Street.
And they
Okay.
always had a jar of marshmallows on top of the ice box. Now, dumb what you remember.
And this was
Yeah.
before my time.
Yeah.
I don't remember any of the Mathises at all.
I remember them having a coin bank of some kind. You put a coin, I don't remember just exactly, but I remember this coin bank. You put a penny in it, it would flip over on a clown or something. That was always there.
Was it? They lived in this little bit, it was an old
Yeah,
house.
it was.
Yeah. Mother had, what was the Biermans? What, was he a half-brother?
He was a half-brother of Mother.
But they were very poor. The thing was, here again, back to, there were a lot of people that were very poor back when,
Compared to us.
compared to us.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Well, you're only poor if you think you are.
Well, I made the remark one time
Dad
to
had a steady
Wahneta that
job.
we were just the poor Heyducks, and she said we never missed a meal. And I said, you're right, we weren't.
I
We never
thought,
missed a good meal.
No, right.
but my friend Wahneta Stutzman that lived across the street,
They had it rough.
they had it rough. She lived with her grandmother. I don't know what happened to their father, but their mother had to work. And she, well, I haven't communicated with her for a long time, but she said, you know, she thought of us as, and I didn't think of myself as rich at all.
Well, we didn't think of ourselves as rich or poor.
No.
We were just
happy.
We were
Well,
happy
except
people.
that I was told at one point, when Bobby Albright was doing something, and I wanted to do it too, that we weren't like the Albrights, that had to learn to
Where do
just
I keep hearing kids?
live
Is there
with
anybody
brother.
here?
But I remember too, Dad kept telling the story, or as I remember it, about the Depression when he was called into the car shop, foreman I guess, or superintendent, about
Being
being able to rewind wire motor. And Dad said he thought he could do it, and he said, okay, you return to work Monday. But this was with the big layoff, and so many others got laid off, and he never did.
Well, the railroad had to give him 3 days notice, and Dad had already got his notice.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay,
I
didn't-
remember.
Okay.
Yeah, Dad said that motor developed a problem, and he said, I can fix it. And so he came back to work the next day. And but I also remember that this would have been high school days when you needed a new dress or a new something for it, and I would say, well, I'll go borrow from so-and-so.
And Daddy would not allow that.
Daddy would not allow that, so Daddy would go, and maybe they were, you know, that Daddy'd go buy you what you needed for that particular occasion.
Daddy would not let me even borrow from Wahneta. Of course, we fussed. Maybe that had something to do with it, but we didn't wear each other's clothes.
Well, that's all I wore was
I
hand-me-down.
got her hand-me-downs when I was little, but when we were in high school, we could not wear each
Well, see,
other's
Bill,
clothes.
that's where you and I were neglected.
Yeah,
Yeah, the
okay.
girls got all the nice things, and
Yeah.
we got all the old.
I
hand-me-downs.
bought a lot of my sweaters and stuff with babysitting money. And the other day I decided I needed to go back in the babysitting business. They get $8 an hour. I said, you're kidding.
Yeah, I got
50 cents for a whole day.
Well, I remember I got $1 for a whole day while Mrs. Bazant went to St. Louis shopping. She was gone all day long. $1. Another thing that Penny and I have always been able to brag about, we can't now, but that we had one drawer, and everything we owned was in that one drawer.
That's all.
And that we had the cardboard closet.
No, we had the closet that we
No,
shared.
we had a cardboard closet too, also. We shared the one closet in the bed in the hall.
But we had the closet that was up over the
Yeah, the stairs.
stairs.
That was for blankets and the like.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was for blankets, yeah. Yeah, the house had one closet, one smaller than Liz's walk-in now.
Yeah.
It was a walk-in, but it wasn't suitable. You put the hangers this way, you didn't have really room to walk in, if I remember.
Well, you could walk
That
in,
house,
but you.
when we went back to that house, it was so little.
I was gonna buy it.
I remember if Mother had a live chicken, if Dad had to kill the chicken,
You wouldn't eat it.
he would not eat it.
Mom would. Mom would.
Mom would go out and ring the neck.
And it flip flop all around the yard.
Yeah.
Am I dreaming, or did Daddy buy a pig or something and try to butcher it in the basement?
We didn't know.
And Oliver came over and rescued him?
We didn't butcher it. They butchered it up at Patoka. A family by the name of Farmer worked.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
They
Wahneta.
worked for the railroad.
Yeah.
And Dad bought a half a pig or brought a pig from him, and we rubbed the bacon. We rubbed salt into the meat and some of the bacon and all. Maurice and I had to do some of that.
But
Yeah,
didn't
you
Dean,
might have helped out.
didn't Oliver Winkler come and?
I think Oliver came and might have helped us.
Yeah, because
Because
Dad
about the
saw
time he and
Kara
Jerry
then.
got married. Terribly.
Well, Wahneta and I, the farmers, he worked for Daddy and then got laid off during the Depression.
Yeah.
And they rented up out of
I remember
Patoka.
going to somebody's house up there, and I would get so homesick, I'd get
Oh,
sick.
you did, you cried.
I'd get so
Then
homesick.
she ate grapes and brown sugar and got sick.
You get sick, you get to go home. And
I
I
remember
still,
Mama getting sick when they made apple butter over next door.
At Henry's.
Yeah,
The
at
Henry's
Henry's.
used to make apple butter.
Great big
And they
old
used to
kettle.
also wring the chicken's neck too. I remember that.
And those chickens flopped all down.
Dad wouldn't eat fish either then.
No, Daddy didn't eat
No,
He was
fish.
scared of the bones.
yeah, and
He or Uncle Duke one got strangled on a fish bone when they were little kids, and neither one of them would eat fish after that.
I don't want any part of fish with bones. I think the first bite, the first bone, I feel I'm choking to death, and so
But
nowadays I don't have to worry about
After
it.
Mother died, Daddy came down to Marco. Why, he took a bite of fish and found out there was no bones, and he liked it and started eating fish. But Daddy would not eat fish.
Now, when us kids were growing up,
He'd
We
take
had
Mother
tuna
out on,
fish, oh, and
Huh?
salmon, we had salmon.
oh yeah,
Yeah, salmon.
salmon croquettes.
Salmon croquettes, yeah. And,
And then Dad wouldn't eat bananas.
No,
They
Dad-
made him sick.
yeah,
Because he
Daddy,
said he had gotten one of those strings in his mouth and it made him sick.
I don't know about the
We,
string.
That's what he was saying.
I always said too that the only place we ever got to go, we got to go to Florida because Aunt Viva lived down there, and we could get a foreign pass and
you were
ride.
allowed so many foreign passes through the year. Now,
Yeah.
on the local railroad, you could ride all you
Yeah,
wanted.
and we went on the train to Detroit when Uncle Bud, Mother's brother, lived in Detroit. And we could go to Chicago and visit the Kellys because you rode free. We rode free.
But we always packed a lunch, too.
Yeah, you took a lunch. Back to the Kellys, when they had whooping cough, the Kellys, was it pennies or dimes, that they saved, Lula saved so that they could entertain people that came to Chicago for the 1933 and 34 World's Fair. And I remember going to that.
Little Chuck was 5 years old when you had the World's Fair. When you
I
had
remember.
the call.
And he had the,
33, I've been 4 years old.
Sometimes when they stop to
But
think about
somewhere
it,
in that.
were we really freeloaders on all of our relatives that we
Oh,
went
but they
to
all
them?
came to our house. No, I mean, there was not such a thing as a motel.
Yeah.
Half the summer, Juanita and I slept on the sun porch floor, because we had company and we always gave our bedroom.
Was
And,
it freely, or was this?
no, it wasn't freely, but we,
Mother said you'll sleep in there.
you went to the floor.
You didn't stay long.
Fan with a cardboard fan.
As I remember the Kellys, we went there and then
Yeah,
we
we'd
went back.
stay one or
like
two nights, and
Yeah.
they'd come down Centray and stay 1 or 2 nights.
but you didn't have motels.
No?
No.
You just stayed with,
And you know what the kids don't do now? Of course, if it was a good friend like the Kellys, it was Aunt Lula and Uncle Will. If it wasn't real close friends, it was Mr. and Mrs.
Exactly.
I remember, what year did we go to state tournament? About 46, 45, something like that?
42.
42.
No, this was when I was in high school. But a group of us
We
fellas.
always stayed at Parks.
Yeah, the
but
park.
we were gonna stay in our car and go to the depot and wash and shave. And Mother called up there to somebody.
The
and
Parks.
The
and
Parks.
Mother had told me
Floyd
to
and-
call them. And when I called them, she insisted that we come out, all of us 5 boys,
Well,
stay at her house.
when we went in 42,
39.
I took 5 girls and myself. There was 6 of us, and we stayed at her house.
Who was the part-time? It sounds
Floyd
familiar.
Parks
Yeah, who?
and
They
Again,
were,
they were
O.C.
railroad
O.C.
friends.
Parks.
Yeah.
Okay.
he was a
He
railroader.
was a conductor or something. I think he was a,
But O.C. and
Trainer.
they were all friends, and we'd go up to Lillian, her sisters, Lillian Roberts in Chicago.
Okay, now that was I was trying to remember. I remember the Kellys, but there was someone else that we used to
Go in
visit.
Chicago, Lillian Roberts.
Okay, and they had, I remember their refrigerator outside,
Oh.
outside and the ice, the cube of ice. That one I remember.
Remember, okay.
But
We
I don't
go,
remember whose house it was. It was
but
like
the Parks,
a
Penny,
walk-up apartment or something.
yeah, they were on about 2nd floor, and lovely apartment. It was
yeah,
a
they had
a big
big,
3-bedroom.
the whole floor
I mean, it
of-
was
a big apartment, probably bigger than our house.
probably.
Now, earlier I heard y'all talking about Uncle Nathan. Who is Uncle Nathan?
Oh, I was gonna tell you about Uncle Nathan and
Aunt Laura.
Aunt Laura lived the first door east of us, and I don't know how they survived with all of us kids. I remember putting little tiny firecrackers outside their window early and lighting them. Uncle Nathan had apple trees and cherry trees.
Grapes.
He
An
had
apricot tree.
a stable in the back, I guess,
Yep.
where he kept his horses. But we were not allowed to pick his apples. But if
Some
he
of us
wasn't
did, anyway.
around, you went and you shook the tree. And then when they fell, then you got to get the apples.
They were transparent, a yellow apple.
This
Aunt
was-
Laura was a Bundy.
Okay.
She was Daddy's aunt.
Okay.
They were the Adams, was
We
it?
should have-
Uh-huh.
And that was before the Henrys moved.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
And we would sit on his well stoop, the concrete stoop, and pray for that beautiful apple up there to fall down.
Bob Carter and I ate some of the grapes one day, and Uncle Nathan, he was all upset because we kids had ate the grapes, and it was either Mom or Carter, Mrs. Carter one came over and said, "Have you boys been eating the grapes?" And we both shook our head no. And one or the other says, "Open your mouth." And there was all this blue from the grapes. I don't remember getting a spanking, but I imagine that was pretty close.
Well, I didn't get a spanking, but Mother was awfully mad at me. Bill was in this little Angora sweater and knit pants in a stroller. And I was supposed to take him out and entertain him, pushing him, while Mother, I don't know where we're going, probably something at church. That's about the only place we went. But I was supposed to push Bill around. And by this time, Aunt Laura had died, and if Mom was just going to get Dad or something, Uncle Nathan wanted to ride. He just loved to go for a ride. But, so he was out in the yard, and he gave Bill and I both, I don't know if you might have been there, a peppermint stick. And Bill was just a little guy, I don't know, probably not a year old, and he took that peppermint stick, and by the time Mom came to get us, his little outfit was, oh, it was a mess. My mother almost whipped Uncle Nathan.
The vacant lot that we spoke of earlier, where we had the tennis court, oh, that was Uncle Nathan's. That was part of his ground. It was just an extra lot, really. It's
Well, that lot's where I tried to teach myself how to ski. Well, because it was lower than the yard on either side.
Yeah.
And I got a
Especially was higher.
couple sticks, I think they came from a barrel stave or something. I tried to strap them to my feet and ski down that 2 or 3 feet at the most.
Well, on down the street lived the Welches, who had the monkey too.
oh yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
And then the Stoners, they had 2 German police dogs. And I was down at the Welches playing with Emily, and she let both of those police dogs loose. And I didn't sit down for a week after that. They bit me in the seat. And ruined my new summer pajamas.
What were you doing out playing in your pajamas?
Oh, that's what they called slacks then, summer pajamas. Isn't that what they call them?
Something like that,
Something
yeah.
like that. Yeah, they were a fancy little cotton slack outfit.
But Uncle Nathan had teams of horses, and they would haul coal. He even hauled coal up into the 30s, if I remember right. I was 10 or 12 years old when he might have quit.
So was he a competitor of your grandfather's?
Well,
I wouldn't say competitors, but they were probably, well, Grandpa by that time had a truck,
Okay.
and Uncle Nathan never got a machine.
He never had a truck
No,
car.
he stayed with horses.
and they were union. Our Grandpa Heyduck was union. He was a teamster, wasn't he?
Yeah, well, I think they
And that-
call them teamsters. I don't know if he belonged to the union.
Well, when you drive a team, you're a teamster, and that's where
Well,
the name comes from.
Yeah, I know.
You know?
And the truck drivers now are called teamsters.
Right.
Yeah.
But,
I don't think he was union.
oh, was it?
I don't
Okay.
think so. I don't think.
He
Well,
might have been.
He might have been, because he had something on his hat. He always wore those caps. In fact, my favorite picture of Grandpa Heyduck
Right.
is with his pipe and that little
Okay.
cotton
Right.
hat.
We've got one in our living room, I think.
Yeah,
you're
that's my
referring
very
to.
favorite picture of Grandpa.
Any other Bundy relatives that you associated with growing up?
Not really, I can
Well, you played with the Long kids. Their mother
Oh,
was a
yeah,
cousin.
Jim and Bill played with them.
Well, Elizabeth was my age.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they were cousins, second cousins.
But they went to Central School and we went to Irving, so there was a lot of time in between.
They went,
Why did
Where'd
they?
they go? No.
Elizabeth went to Irving.
Well,
Jim and,
Jim and Bill went to Central. They never went to Irving School.
They didn't?
No, Irving School wasn't good enough for them. They had
we were on the line.
Yeah.
We were on the line, and they were always threatening to send us to
Yeah,
Central
well,
School.
you volunteered once, and you and Ellie both volunteered.
We did?
Yes, and Daddy said, no way. Daddy said, I built this house in Irving School District, you are not going.
What was
sent over there one time, and when Dad heard about it, he brought him home too.
what was the difference between the schools? That
Well, it was just, Irving School was the best school.
Irving School was a new school at
Was
the
it?
time,
Yeah.
while Washington, or
Central wasn't
Central was
old.
an older building, but they had the teachers there, I think, were, maybe they were older or favorites or something. A lot of people thought it was a better school for some reason or another. Maybe it was because of Martha Watson.
She was a Central. She was the
Principal.
principal.
Oh,
Yeah.
But there was
Right.
that rivalry between the schools, and
Now,
Yeah.
Madeline Pennock was in, or Garrison, went to Central, but she was in Irving District. Norma Harp lived next door, went to Irving.
Yeah, it was, they had trouble with districts in those days as well as they do now.
tell me about Aunt Sadie and Uncle Frank. How were they related, and what did you do with them?
Sadie Schilling?
Uh-huh.
Aunt Sadie was the meanest old woman in the block. Now let me clarify that. When I hurt my leg down here, and I was supposed to walk and put all the pressure on it to stretch that muscle back out when I was 12 years old.
yeah, you caught it in a wagon, didn't you?
No, that was his knee.
Yeah, no, that was the wagon.
Oh, that,
But I would go from our back door, we lived on an alley that was a T. And I'd come out our alley, and then I'd go down this T to the vacant lot that was across the street, or the back door of Aunt Sadie's. I could never go down that alley without her catching me, because I would go faster without putting my foot down, and that wasn't my therapy. I was supposed to put it down, stretch that muscle out. Dean, put your foot down.
and then she called Mother.
And see, her daughter was one of our school teachers.
Our
oh
fifth grade.
boy.
Yeah.
And Mother knew before we ever got home if any of us.
Misbehaved.
There were
Misbehaved.
two daughters, both of them school teachers.
Yeah, but
But
Francis
overall,
didn't
Aunt
teach at
Aunt
Irving.
Sadie and Uncle Frank were good. Aunt Sadie and Uncle
Mhm.
Frank, they were
Yeah.
good friends.
Good Baptist, even
good
though they were
neighbors.
Baptists, they
They
were
were
okay.
I think that
I
was-
remember I went to school one day when I was little, and the teacher in health wanted to know what I'd eaten for breakfast that morning, and I said apple pie. And I went home, and Mother naturally asked us what all we'd had at school, and I said, well, we in health, I told them I'd had apple pie for breakfast, and my mother could have died.
Yeah, I had that in high
I
school
did
in
too.
cooking class. What'd you have for breakfast? Apple pie.
I had chocolate cake with milk lots of breakfast.
I did too.
And then then I went home for lunch, and I was supposed to write down everything we ate all day. And I had apple pie for breakfast, and went home. To my embarrassment, it was hash. And I had to write down hash. So I told Mother, I said, have a good dinner tonight, because I've got to write this all down. And Marie and Stedland,
Stedlings?
yeah, they were good friends of Mother's growing up, because they lived by each other growing up. And I forgot what Mother had for dinner that night, but I was so embarrassed. And then the teacher, she said, well, now really, this is a balanced meal. And she went on and on and on, and I felt a little better, but I was still ashamed that I had to write it all down. Because I like stew, but I mean, I felt like it was not.
You better have liked it, that we had a lot of it.
We have a lot of it.
Then the
Not
Sunday
much.
roast, huh?
Yeah, but it was good. Janet told me the other day, Mother used to grind up roast also and put pickles, you know, for lunch
Mhm.
meats.
Oh,
and
yeah.
peanuts in it.
We still do. Our
And
grinder
Janet
went out.
said she hadn't done that for years, hadn't even thought of it. And some roast left over, and she said, I looked at it and I thought, I'm not going to eat it like that. It's just, you know, it needs something. And she ground it up. And her Don thought, what? What'd you do? This tastes all right. What is this? And was really on her. And she said, well, we used to have it a lot at home. And
It's like a ham
when
sandwich,
I
only
buy a
50
roast,
nuts in it, too.
Paul and I'll eat it for 2 or 3 days, then I have it left over. And Mother always did it. She would have leftover beef and pork. She did beef and pork together for a roast. And the first time I did it, you thought I gave Paul Shaw poison. He wouldn't touch it.
well, Janet said she had the condensed on.
So actually, I have some in there in the refrigerator because maybe it was Paul's birthday. I got carried away and bought all this roast, and Liz and Terry came over, and we didn't eat it all, and we ate for a couple of days, and then so I ground it up and got part of it out yesterday, and I put mayonnaise and green pepper, pickled
Good
relish.
relish. Yeah.
Heidi said, I want barbecue sauce with mine.
Ew.
With
Eggs.
mayonnaise?
No, not the mayonnaise.
No,
Just barbecue. She said the Pampered Chef lady said to do that. So she did. I've got 2 little helpings in there in the refrigerator. One with mayonnaise and one. But
Did you put peanuts in it?
no,
Mother used to grind peanuts in it.
no, I didn't remember.
If she had them. She
Yeah.
didn't always. If she's
That's
had
how
them.
you cleaned the grinder, wasn't it?
No, she always did that with a cracker.
David said,
How
oh,
we
that's a
doing?
good way.
Well, let me ask this question, see if I can make some trouble. Which one of you was the easiest child and which was the hardest for your parents?
I was the easiest.
both. How about that? He's the only one that raised his hand.
I was the easiest, no question.
You mean at birth?
At any time, growing up. Which one of you caused the least worry and problems and
Oh, I
most cooperative or whatever?
Probably Bill was, because he was a baby and he was spoiled.
Did y'all help do that?
Yes,
Probably.
it took the whole family.
Well, you know what they said about our family? That even though we were 6, that we were all spoiled. Mother spoiled us all in her own way.
I remember we were having dinner at Penny's one year. Marge was going to stay here, and I was going home with myself. And Mother went into the kitchen and started fixing things for me to take home. And Penny just raised holy king.
You were spoiled. Mother spoiled you.
No.
Mother was sick in bed, and you used to call and say, I'm coming home, and she'd get up and make you an apple pie. You were spoiled.
Yeah. Mother,
I don't think she really had any, I don't think
I'm-
she or Daddy either one had any favors or played.
Daddy had the girls.
Well, that's kind of natural, I think.
you know,
Well, he
there's,
just let me sit on the couch, and I'd brush and comb his hair.
Dad, we'd comb Dad's hair. He didn't have any.
I was gonna say, which one?
He'd sit there.
Mother was always sickly,
Yeah.
and I think Mother was, a lot of times, was overwhelmed by the size of family she had. And in her way, she went to bed. And we had to do, but I think it was not that having 6 children isn't overwhelming, but I think Mother Daddy had to take over to help.
Wouldn't Mother and Dad been overwhelmed with the group that we had this weekend?
Yes.
But too, outside the house, the Heyducks were respected. And when later I went in the service and came back, and to get a check cashed or something, if I said that they weren't interested in my ID card or military rank or anything, that if Dean Heyduck was my brother or Floyd was my father, and anywhere, and I don't think anybody ever spoke badly of us. We were respected in the church, and Dad at the shops and things like that.
But, and the kids that we ran around with. Now, Mary Hayes and I got to, and we were talking once. And Madeline and, well, all of us have talked, and they talk about our father being always there for us kids, and always sweet, always kind, and that we were lucky to have our parents. I mean,
There's no question about that.
but other kids thought our parents were great.
Well, Will Kelly, who got to know a lot better after meeting Mary, and he just, every time I'd see him, he'd tell what a good man that Floyd was.
That's right.
Both at work and then with the friends and everything. And when you and your friends, the girlfriends would come, and you know, the respect they had for Mom and Dad.
Right after we got married, Marge and I wrote Marge and told her to go to my mother and get some money to buy everybody Christmas out of my account that I'd been sending home money while I was still single. Dad really got upset that Marge was going to get my money. But Mother went ahead and gave her money over Dad's.
Well, it was for Nancy and Janet.
Daddy was,
buy for your car.
what was it
Mark
called,
and April?
the father, not the father, what, for Eastern, not Eastern Star, Rainbow.
Oh, Daddy.
Daddy was, there's a lot of young girls here in town that, and I think Betty Womble was one of them. It's what a great dad you had.
But Daddy, Mr. Hot Kaiser asked Daddy, why in the world do you want to go sit down there with those silly young kids? And Daddy said, because at my age, I'm losing my friends weekly, daily, and if I don't make younger friends.
I remember that.
And Daddy enjoyed those kids.
I don't think there was any electrical work ever done at the First Christian Church that my dad didn't do.
Probably not when he was active. Yeah. And he did North Masonic Temple.
Yeah.
Of course, one day he called. He went to, this was after he was retired and hard of hearing. He went down to Masonic Temple to do something, and he forgot to turn the engine off.
Yeah.
It was our little blue Tempest that he was driving then. And the police called Mother and said, where is Mr. Heyduck? Mother said, well, he's down to Masonic Temple working. No, he isn't, but his car's sitting here running. And he had gone to town to get a part. Mom called you at this office, and you went and picked her up and went down there, and here came Daddy strolling. He had gone down to Warren's or someplace to get a part that he needed.
Since I came back?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
I remember the Tempest.
And old
Yeah.
Mother was so mad at him. But the police were concerned because they couldn't find him.
It was
You
right
were
next
talking
to the
about
police station.
writing a check. The story I've got was that when Dad retired, that he went to the bank to cash his retirement check, and they wouldn't honor it because Mother had signed every check, every payroll check that Dad
I
had
don't
ever
think that
deposited.
really happened. I think that's a story.
That's possible.
I was telling Robert and Deanne, I took them on the tour, and I said, used to ride down with Mom to that one place across from Pino's.
Yeah.
And Dad would walk across there and give Mom a check.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Phil Altadonna told me that Daddy cashed his
Yeah, I took
paycheck
him where it used to be.
at the filling station. I said, no, Phil, I'm sorry. Daddy may have cashed a check, but it was not his paycheck because my dad never cashed the paycheck.
That could have been his overtime check.
Well,
Sometimes they got a check,
Yeah.
separate check.
Yeah, I remember riding down there with Mother to get Daddy's check. And I always said too that our mother could stretch $1 further than, you know, I don't think I'm very good at it, you know, in comparison. But she had to be, as
There was 6 of us kids.
she had to stretch $1.
Yeah, because even though there was a paycheck there all the time, it was a long way to cover it. A lot to be covered.
Well, and the 3 of us in high school at the same time, and
Yeah,
Of course, I was making $1.25 every Saturday morning.
well, I was making 50 cents over at Albright's.
I would, Zachary asked me about my jobs. I remember, what was the lady's name? I cleaned her house. It was near the high school. Here again, a friend of mother's. And I did cleaning and I did babysitting. And,
Well, you would, if Ruth Albright had a dinner party, you'd go over and do dishes.
I went, yeah, when
and
she
help serve. And
she had a dinner party, I went and did her dishes so she could enjoy her, you know, like the maid. And we were paid something, I guess. And you came and helped serve?
I didn't like that. I didn't like that. I babysat a lot, but I didn't like that help serving bit.
And then I worked at the Illinois brokerage, and I hate to tell this, but heaven help the lady that bought yard goods from me, because I don't know, I didn't know what I was doing. No, and I don't know if I sold her the right so many yards or what, but the Illinois brokerage had yard goods that you bought by the.
I didn't know you worked with me.
I worked there on Saturdays. I worked at, and I think it was Woolworths
I
on
worked at
Saturdays.
Kresge's on Saturdays.
And I
during Christmas
remember
holidays.
coming home, standing there all day and just crying with my legs. My legs just.
Well, see, the Illinois brokerage where I met Marge.
And then I worked at Walgreens in the summer between my junior and senior year in high school, because that was the place in town. It wasn't just, it was a restaurant, and it was
Remember that.
and that summer, and I was trying to remember how much money I made, but I bought myself a coat and some saddle Oxfords and some other clothes that I really hadn't had an abundance of clothes.
It was just about 2 doors from the Sentinel.
And then Penny and I, for Christmas, $25
Oh, wasn't very much.
went to Miami and spent Christmas with Aunt Viva. But I think we came home with 1 penny
Or 3 pennies or something like that. We had a sack of tangerines that Aunt Sadie and Aunt Viva had given us to bring home. We got to Jacksonville.
Had to change trains.
And we had 4 hours or something, and someone got to talk about the movie theater and a stage play. Was it a stage play or just a movie? Anyway, they said that it wasn't far, and you could take a cab for $1. So we took a cab, and the time we went to the movies, we had to walk back, and some man walked with us. He said, "Where are you 2 girls?" Now, she was a senior and I was a sophomore. "Where are you going?" And we said, "To the train station." And he walked us. I guess we weren't in a very good neighborhood, but that's where we spent our money. And time we got home, it was not much, and we ate tangerines all the time.
Well, let me go ahead and wrap up with one final question.
Yeah.
What kind of heritage do you think it's important for you to pass on to your kids and your grandkids and great-grandkids and the coming generations?
Well, our number 2 grandson, Joe, we were over there probably in a year or so ago, and he said he was going to change the name of the spelling of our Heyduck. and I forgot exactly how he was going to spell it. But I said, Joe, you know your great-grandfather for you to keep it the way it is. And I would too. I'm not too sure he was serious about it. But he said, Grandpa, I'll never do anything to dishonor his name.
I think we, like Penny said earlier, we were very lucky to have the wonderful parents that we have, and I think, I really think our children have benefited. They've been good parents. I think all my children. Mark, Penny calls him Floyd Heyduck's son, you know, because Mark has 3 children and 3 adopted children. And Mark has been a very good parent. Heidi and Liz, I think that's the importance of being good parents and mother and father being there for their children. And I really think that maybe, and all this politics, them saying there has to be family, that isn't going to make it. It has to be that man that produced those children and that woman that produced those children. That's where it has to begin. It can't be somebody in the government telling them. They have to.
I think it's that teaching principles that hopefully I've maintained their principles, and as my mom and dad taught us, there were principles. There wasn't things not to be over well, mostly black and white. That there are things, but keep to reason and listen and this sort of thing, which I think I learned from my parents.
I know at the very beginning, I mean, my teenage years and early years, I probably wasn't everything Mother and Dad wanted, but I hope that I have turned out to be what they have would want. And I think my kids has been carried on into that tradition. And I hope my grandkids follow through on that. That they will live and be as loving and consistent as my parents were.
One of the things I want to reminisce of, one of the friends, if I stayed out too late on Saturday night, I had to go to church on Sunday night. And if I got sleepy, Dad poked me, but I had to go to church. We had church on Sunday night in those days. And if you stayed out late on Saturday night, you had to go to church on Sunday night.
Then you did, if you didn't go to Sunday school and church, you didn't go swimming, or you didn't go to show, you know.
That's how Wahneta learned how to tell time one night. She came in and she fibbed to her father, said, I got home at so-and-so, and he says, how come the clock struck 2 or whatever it was?
Then we all found out that if you came in between 11:30, no, 12, and what was it? And 12 and 1. Yeah, because then at 12 it struck 12 times, and 12:30 it was 1, 1 o'clock was 1, and 1:30 was 1. So Wahneta, I was always an angel. I didn't do all that silly stuff. We just had slumber parties and stayed all night with my friends. But later
I remember in my upper teenage years, I was getting restless in the First Christian Church and went and visited a lot of other churches. And Mother would go with me. Mother would insist on, that's fine with her, you know, but let's go. and Mother would go with me, and finally then I decided the First Christian Church was where I belonged. If nobody was going to fuss at me, yeah, then I better go back to First Christian Church.
Some of those things are kind of hard to explain, Richard, why, what we want to pass on. It just, good behavior just comes naturally because that's the way we were.
Mm-hmm.
Like you mentioned church, we never got up in the morning and said, are we going to church?
No.
It was, you got up and went to church.
And you came home and Mother had lunch ready.
Yeah, and I remember, I mentioned this to somebody, and nobody seems to remember it but me, but Marvin and Bailey Circus came through here one Sunday, and in those days they had to stop ever so often and let their cattle off for their animal shows and water them and whatever, and they were going to put on a show on Sunday. And a lot of people objected to this at the time because there were no theaters on Sunday, no shows and nothing. You know, this was the day of the Sabbath. And our father said, I'm going to take my kids. So once in a lifetime, they may never see a Barnum and Bailey Circus again. And we went. Now, I remember going.
I remember going to circus, but I don't remember those circumstances.
And there may have been preferences by Mom or Dad, but I think he was just proud of us. He was always proud, and I heard good things about Wahneta when they were away, and Penny and everything. He was just so proud of that we were his children and Mom's children, and that meant a lot.
Any other closing words from anybody?
No, not me.
No? Thanks for sharing.